So I think this is an example of just one of the ways the French in Quebec is just a bit different, aside from the accent. I'm not positive about this, but I've been told that that word barré, which means closed, that's sort of an archaic way of saying closed, as in barred. You know, when you put an old sort of a wooden lock on your door, that's where that comes from, rue barré. So the street is closed, and I'm told that they don't use that verb like that any longer in France. But it's just an example of, if what I've been told is correct, an example of sort of an archaic French word that persists here in Quebec. I think the main difference between the French in Quebec and the French in Paris is, you know, the very significant difference in the accent. And then there's a lot of slang and a lot of colloquial speech. I think probably a general comparison would be the English you would hear around Parliament in England, and then the English you would hear in a small city or a town in rural Iowa or Mississippi, something like that. So it is a significant difference, and but my understanding is that people from France don't have any trouble understanding Quebecers, or don't have a lot of trouble understanding Quebecers, and Quebecers don't have trouble understanding the French from France, because French news plays here in Quebec, French movies, etc. So I'm on one of the outer edges of Old Quebec. It's about 7:30 in the morning. And on my right is the old part of the old Citadel. I'm not sure if that's the right name, but the old British fort. Started off as French fortifications. Then the British and the French fought a major battle in this area in 1759. The key question being who would dominate this part of North America. And the British in 1759 won a major battle right outside the gates of Quebec City, right outside the walls of old Quebec City. And the French colony of Quebec, New France, came under the control of the British. So we're heading up toward the Citadel now. Out there is the St. Lawrence River. The British won this major battle here just outside the gates of Quebec City in 1759, and so New France comes under the British flag. But the British had a growing world empire, had plenty to do, and were not really interested in micromanaging New France. So New France was, to a significant degree, at least at the street level, was left alone. The Catholic Church, a conservative force, I think effectively counseled obedience to authority, and the British made no real attempt to alter the French character of New France. Of course, when British officials came here to Quebec, they set up their English language institutions, and English became the language of prestige, of course the language of the British Empire. But they made no attempt to stamp out French here in Quebec, the way there was an attempt, say, in Britain itself, to, if not stamp out, significantly reduce the influence of the Celtic languages. For example, in Wales, I don't think any comparable attempt to stamp out French here in Quebec was undertaken. And so, although the language of status was English, the language of the streets for the large majority remained French. And so you have this population of now about 7 million French speakers in North America. This building here is the Chateau Frontenac. It's a hotel, and probably the most iconic, best recognized buildings in Quebec. Probably one of the most iconic, best recognized buildings in Canada. There's the St. Lawrence River, and coming up to the old Citadel here, which is still linked to an active army base, Canadian Army base here. Oh, it looks like construction work is taking place, but still linked to an active army base. St. Lawrence River, the Citadel there, and actually I just noticed there's a Canadian soldier right there. Canadian soldier in uniform. I don't know if he's on watch or just happens to be there, but there he is, Canadian soldier in uniform, looking out over the St. Lawrence. It's a completely unique world up here in Quebec, and it's amazing that so few Americans know about it. They really have a sense that there's a completely French-speaking world up here that can be driven to from any place in the States.